Hello, my name is Peregrine. Before this video starts, I want to preface that this video contains some quite heavy subjects, and that this video isn't a witch hunt or an expose, rather see it as a think piece to stimulate deeper thinking and understanding of how we as adults should act online, particularly around the presence of minors. I understand that this title is a bold accusation with a heavy weight behind the words used. However, I completely stand by it and would greatly appreciate it if you would hear out what I have to say before jumping to conclusions. I should also mention that the script is a little bit repurposed, so if it feels a bit out of place sometimes, it's because I wrote some of this months ago, and it's just been altered with new news. So, the website twitch.tv is a child-focused video game streaming website. It got into some heavy controversy a few years ago about gambling streams and how they were promoting an addictive, money-sinking and predatory industry to children, which they were. So their decision to ban gambling streams was not only a justified one, but a moral one. Yet a few days ago, Twitch unveiled a brand new Twitch ambassador who comes from another addictive, money-sinking and predatory industry, that being pornography. A Twitch ambassador is someone who is not just a streamer for the site, but is also outwardly promoted by the site itself, usually picked to be, quote, role models for their child audience. So why exactly have Twitch made an ex-porn star known as Kaho Shibuya, which, by the way, is her porn star name, a Twitch ambassador? The concept of this video has been in the back of my mind for years. It has sat on the shelf out of fear of doxing and death threats, in the very small chance that this video gets traction. However, I feel I can't ignore it anymore. After working as a therapist and spending years seeing the first and second-hand effects of growing up online, I've been thinking about the complex relationships between content creator and audience, particularly with their younger audience members. In the past, there was always quite an obvious fine line between what is and isn't pornography. Porn stars did porn and kept away from children's entertainment, like streaming or YouTube, and influencers kept away from porn stars and pornographic content. But in the advent of a porn-positive movement, quite a lot of influencers have decided to take the leap into becoming porn stars, using their careers of streaming or doing YouTube videos as springboards into it, or sometimes the opposite happens, where porn stars have decided they want to be influencers and using their porn star names as recognition to springboard into influencing. Now, of course, if someone wants to be a porn star, that's well within their right to do that. However, how morally correct are these decisions? We know that pornography is designed to be as addictive as possible, and plays on one of humanity's most primal desires. And we also know that overconsumption of pornographic content can lead to major psychological issues, especially within children. So why are we okay with modern-day children's entertainers being, or starting, porn careers? The first thing that people automatically say when I bring up this topic is, the creator says this is for 18 plus fans only. Which is about as good as a defense as the Cheeto door locking mechanism. It is well known that OnlyFans and other porn websites are comedically easy to circumvent, but still, I feel like this would be a fair argument to anyone who is just a porn star, because, you know, kids will always find ways to access porn, so the morally correct thing to do in this situation is to do your best to take preventative measures to this, which would imply not fucking advertising it to them. But Peregrine, I hear you say, wouldn't that imply that a porn star can't have a YouTube career and vice versa? That's not fair. And to that I say, you know, that's a good point. I don't like arbitrarily banning or censoring people for no reason. However, there is a pretty simple solution to all this. Don't connect your brands together. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. On screen right now, unless I forgot to edit, this is Miss Rachel, an incredibly popular YouTube children's entertainer. I think you would agree with me that it would be wildly inappropriate for her to start Miss Rachel's Backshots Emporium, wouldn't it? On the other hand, if she in her spare time started an OnlyFans called Splatterworld Kinkfest and didn't advertise it using the Miss Rachel branding, I personally don't see an issue with that. After all, her body, her choice. And that's the thing that really bothers me. What I just said is incredibly basic critical thinking. However, these people choose not to do this. For example, Kaho Shibuya streaming under her porn star name instead of just choosing a literal any other name. And another content example I'd like to shine a spotlight on about this is Cottontail VA. Cottontail is a VTuber who gained notoriety in the past for being a hentai voice actress. However, making the leap to content creation, she purposefully chose to link her YouTube branding with her pornography brand for the sole purpose of recognition, profit maximization, and not having to get famous again. All this is done despite knowing full well that VTubing has an incredibly high percent of child viewers. So don't come at me with the bullshit about YouTube analytics, because we all know how unreliable that is. I'm pretty sure my YouTube account thinks I'm 35. Influencers have a responsibility to try and minimize parasocial relationships with their child viewers, as to not expose them to inappropriate material, hence the massive backlash around gambling streams on Twitch. So why isn't this not the case for pornography? But what about the parents? Yeah, okay, they also share the blame, but we already know there's bad parents out there. And that doesn't excuse the actions in the same way that drug dealers don't get off scot-free because, well, I was only supplying what they were buying. No, that's not how that works. You are complicit. We need to seriously take a step back and think about how we, as adults, set an example for the next generation. Do you have any idea how many people I know from my time online and as a therapist that have been groomed or have developed psychological conditions from porn addiction? Let me share a horrible story with you. A few years back, I knew a sex worker. She was a bit bipolar, but her heart was kind. By the time I met her, she'd already been selling nudes for a while. Which was a bit of a problem, really, because when I met her, she was 19. She truly didn't believe she had anything else to offer, and saw how popular OnlyFans and streamers were getting on Twitch, and she saw this as a means to make money on the side. As I said, she was 19, and she'd been doing it for a while. This poor girl had been selling her own child porn. And the worst part, she's not alone in this. When I wrote this script, which was a few months ago, the YouTuber No Text to Speech had a video containing examples of this, how bad Discord grooming is, and how many children are willing to strip for money, or Robux, or whatever. And it's an epidemic, it's horrible, and I can't help but think that there's a connection there. It's a very clear-cut and obvious connection. Shit like this makes my stomach churn, and my heart just burn with rage. Those little girls and boys right now on the internet selling their nudes because their favourite streamers do it, and there's other little kids spending all of their allowances on OnlyFans subscriptions because it makes them feel good, and it rots their fucking brains, depleting all their chemicals in the already turbulent time that is puberty. A few years ago, gooning was a 4chan and Reddit in-joke. Now everyone alive knows what it is, and they treat it like a joke, instead of what it really is, which is an example of an addiction gone horribly wrong. I know that grooming isn't the intent of most of the people doing this. I know you have hearts, and maybe you don't realise it, so please, let me ask you one-on-one with the people doing this, is it worth it? Is the extra money worth knowing you're grooming children for profit? Is the extra money worth it, knowing you've inspired little girls to sell their nudes, and will probably end up being blackmailed? Or is it maybe time we pick a side between streaming to children and doing pornography? You cannot do both anymore. It's just not okay. To anyone who has watched this all the way through, thank you. Even if you personally disagree with me, thank you for hearing me out. I do not harbour any ill will towards the content creators mentioned here, because I very much think that it could have been a mistake. Sometimes people make decisions without really thinking it through, especially when the current zeitgeist is so pro-porn and backs all porn-related decisions without giving any real thought about the psychological impacts. Quite similar to the same way that Kick is very pro-gambling. We're in a very strange transitional point in the internet right now where we kind of come to grips with the fact that there's so many children on there, and people haven't quite figured out how to adapt themselves properly to this new generation of the internet. And I just want to put my own 2 cents in the public pool just to give my opinions. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's only so much one bird can do, and I think next video is probably going to be back to my positive ways. I don't like dragging on negative things. There's enough negativity going on around anyway, so, you know, everyone, even if you completely disagree with me, please have a nice day, and, you know, be the best that you can be. And thank you for watching.